In other news, murder-accused Reinhardt Leach will return to the Gqeberha High Court today as the case against him steadily draws to a close, with the state and defense set to make their closing arguments. Last week, the state and defense concluded their cross-examination of Leach. He's accused of orchestrating and carrying out the 2021 murder of his girlfriend, Vicki Terblanche. Our reporter Lerato Fekisi is on the story.
Well, a very good morning. We are broadcasting outside the Gqeberha High Court, where the case of murder-accused Reinhardt Leach continues at the High Court. This morning, we are expecting to hear closing arguments from the state and the defense. Last week, we heard the last part of Leach's cross-examination, where he declared unapologetically that he denies smothering Vicky Terblanche in 2021, which ultimately led to her death. He took us through a series of timelines as to how things led to Vicky's death, explaining how he met Vicky literally a couple of days before she finally died, saying that she met Vicky at a local party where he was invited by a common friend, and described Vicky as a young lady who had everything together for herself. They then dated, and in their dating, Vicky then explained to Mr. Leach that she allegedly wanted to kill her then estranged husband, Arnold Terblanche, because she described him as a narcissist and self-centered man who was very possessive. She then went on to state that she wanted him killed and wanted Leach actually assist him to kill Arnold Terblanche. Leach then went further to state that it was this time that he felt that it was important to meet Mr. Terblanche to find out what kind of man he was, especially considering that him and Vicky were co-parenting their son at that time, Ruben. He then went to state that eventually he met Mr. Terblanche at a local club and eventually told Mr. Terblanche about Vicky's plan to assassinate him, to which Arnold replied that he wasn't surprised, and if anything he wanted to also get assistance from someone, possibly Leech, to assist him to also kill Vicky, stating that he didn't want his child to grow up in a home where there was a drug abuse. At that time, Leech explained that at any given day Dylan Callis, who is the third accused in this case, currently serving 18 years for his involvement in the case to try and kill Vicky, and also Maria Derrida, who was a business partner at the time, and at any given time they would spend their days taking drugs. And he also went to state that during his meeting with Mr. Terblanche, he confirmed to him that in fact Vicky is taking drugs quite excessively, and even when they were talking she was high on drugs. He then alleged that Mr. Terblanche said that if Leach agreed to help him assassinate Vicky, they were currently going through a divorce, which would see Vicky gain 5 million rand, that he would compensate him financially and also ensure that he buys him a small holding here in Gqeberha. Leach then goes further to state that after going back home, he explained the plan to his two friends, Dylan Callis and Maria Derrida, of this plan to assassinate Vicky with the promise of financial gain, and stating at that time that he had a failed abalone business. He was low and out financially. He had stopped teaching as a teacher and was needing financial assistance. If anything, Vicky at that time was his financial aid, living in her house in Westview, getting financial assistance from Mr. Terblanche, was giving Vicky a stipend at the time. And then he went further to state that in the end a plan to kill Vicky was going to happen through shooting her, and explained how he purchased a gun here in Port Elizabeth, but how later, after speaking to the other two friends of his, the plan was that they must rather drug her and she must rather die from a vomit of an overdose. He went then to the night where she was killed, explaining that she got the drugs, pesticides from Utenek, from a drug dealer there. He gave her 25 pesticides, which ultimately led her to being in a semi-conscious state. He then further went to state that he had sex with Vicky and then she fell asleep, and then the next morning she saw Vicky in Dylan Callis's room. Dylan Callis also, who I said earlier on, is a second accused in this case, and who explained to the court that the reason why he took Vicky out of Mr. Leach's room to the spare room was because he wanted to tell Vicky of this plan. I explained that she was unconscious, she had to really drag him, and then they were later in a room together in the spare room. The very next morning they woke up. Mr. Leach alleges that he saw Vicky lying next to Mr. Callis, and obviously was not happy because they were dating and not understanding why she would be lying next to Dylan the very next morning, where they had hoped by this time she would have been dead. Mr. Leach then alleges that Mr. Callis said that the only other way to make sure she's completely dead and to obviously follow through with the plan by Mr. Terblanche to kill Vicky was to smother her with a pillow, and Leach stands by his word that in the end It was Dylan Cullis who took a pillow and smothered Vicky to death, and then after that the plan was conspired to report her as missing, and then after that it was Dylan Cullis who then reported to the police exactly what happened, where Vicky's body was, and later her body was found, and a pathologist confirming that multiple drugs were found in her system, and she actually died of a multiple drug overdose. So in his closing statements last week, Mr. Leech standing by his word that yes, he had more to gain from killing Vicky. He had more to gain than Mr. Cullis from killing Vicky, because there was a promise of financial assistance which he never got. There was a promise of a house from Mr. Terblanche that he alleges, but that was never fulfilled. But he said that he was down and out financially, and yes, he did play a part in killing Vicky in terms of the drug overdose, but standing by his word that he did not smother her to death. But in the end it was Dylan Cullis, who's also accused in this case, who smothered Vicky to death on that fateful night in October. So this morning we will hear the state and defense bring forward their closing arguments and then close the case of Mr. Reinhardt Leach, and then in October we will see accused number 3, Reinhardt Terblanche, Vicky's estranged husband, take the deck for his cross-examination by the defense. But for now, let's go back to in studio.
Lerato Fekisi there reporting from Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape.